Oops. Okay. I think we can start. We've given plenty of time for the latecomers to arrive. So let me welcome you to International Interns Day. My name is Matteo De Simone, and I am one of the co-founders of the Fair Internship Initiative, which is one of the organizers of this event, together with the European Youth Forum. And we are delighted to have you here today with us for the celebration of 2023 International Interns Day. For those who don't know, the Fair Internship Initiative, shortened as FII, is a platform of young people, interns, students, young professionals, to advocate for fair and equally accessible internships in the UN system. The International Interns Day is a day that has been celebrated since 2015, and it is both a day to celebrate the contribution that interns give to organizations and the economy in general where they work, but also to shed the spotlight a bit on the challenges that they face when doing an internship or in trying to access internships. We know that many challenges persist, particularly in cases where internships remain unpaid. Interns and young people find it, of course, very difficult to access these opportunities, and therefore they tend to exclude those who are coming from less privileged backgrounds. And this, of course, it's the case, including in some UN organizations, unfortunately. And as we have seen, both in our data, but also in data from the UN Secretariat itself, this can lead to a lower participation of people from certain geographic areas, but also from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. The good news is that there are an increasing number of organizations in the UN system that are improving or are introducing support mechanism for interns, better quality standard for interns, and we have a recent example of that, for example, in the UNHCR. While in the case of the Secretariat, we recently had an important development. You might be aware of it, that in March this year, a General Assembly resolution was approved asking the Secretary General to revise the internship program and to also look at ways on how to support financially interns from who don't have sufficient means to do so. This is definitely a long-awaited step, and we ourselves worked very hard towards it, and we will definitely keep track of this process and facilitate it as much as we can to make sure that all UN will have quality and accessible internships throughout. We also hear with pleasure that IOM is in the process of revising its policy, and this is also why we have even more pleasure in welcoming tonight with us a distinguished speaker from the IOM, the Deputy Director General ad interim for Management and Reform, Ms. Irena Ojeszkowa-Sojarano, who is joining us today and will be delivering next some introductory remarks. So it is with the most pleasure that I give you the floor. Deputy Director General, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hello, Matteo, and hello, everybody who is online. I see the count is 130 so far. Thank you very much for inviting me as the Deputy Director General of IOM to speak to all of you on the International Interns Day. It is the Fair Internship Initiative is a great initiative. It not only that it brings all of the interested students and professionals together who would like to be interns, but it's also giving them the tools and giving them access to where they can apply and how they can apply. So congratulations for doing that to the initiative. IOM, as Matteo was mentioning, is revising its policies, and some of them are already in place. And the policies are mainly geared towards making an internship at IOM, internship for young professionals who are interested in migration and in IDP issues and in humanitarian work, but also in the migration policy work, to make it easier for them to come to spend few months with us, to see how the organization is working and what is it that one can do once one is joining such an organization. We are increasing our pool of interns by the day. We are an organization that is growing, and this is also demonstrated in the number of interns that we are accepting. Our new rules that we have and that will be now strengthened are also making sure that all interns get a certain stipend. That is important. And I remember from my own time when I was a student and there were possibilities for internships, but they were not paid. So I had to decline because I had to survive somehow. So this is not the case anymore. There is a stipend that is given to interns in IOM. So it's not only a stipend. It is there is a selection process also that we get the right interns, the ones who have the appropriate background to be able to understand the complexity of our work, and also who come from diverse backgrounds. So we are definitely putting a big emphasis also on the diversity of our staff in general, but also on the interns who potentially might be then our future employees. It is not only the internship, but also it is the trainings that we offer to interns. They can participate in many of the trainings that we offer our staff, and with this also grow professionally and have better insights into the work that we do. One thing also that we have now included in our internship package is that the internship at IOM can be used as official work experience. So it is not coined as an internship. It is actually, you can then use it in your CV as a work experience. And from an internship, once you have the right educational and professional background, you can right away also then apply for positions in IOM, and that will then give you definitely a straight way into being an employee of the organization. An internship is a good way to see how an international organization is working, and if one would like to join or not, because it has many advantages, but also many challenges. And through an internship, you don't commit yourself, you just get an insight, and then you can decide for yourself if this is the path, the professional path that you would like to take. During my career, I had always many interns, and I always like to have students or fresh graduates who come and on one hand help out, but also bring new ideas into the organizations. They ask the questions that we as long-term professionals are not asking anymore. And this is the challenge that they give us. And with this also interns give us the opportunity to find new ways to look at things. and not to repeat the thinking that has been there for decades. So the experience with interns from my side was always very good. And it was challenging because each intern comes from a different background and has different expectations. But this gives an opportunity for dialogue and for shaping our minds on the intern side and also on the organization side. So with this, I hope that I have given you some ideas on how to apply, what to do, and I hope that you will consider to be an intern in an international organization, may it be IOM or any other. But with IOM, we are a growing organization because migration is a topic that no government can do without nowadays. And our work that is very closely linked to governments, but also to civil society, and is being the bridge between the migration communities and governments is very exciting work, and is very much future oriented, because the migrants, they are the ones who shape the future of societies globally. So with this, thank you again for inviting me, and I wish you good deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irena. It's a pleasure for us to have you, and thank you for accepting our invitation. We very much appreciate the work of IOM, first of all, for its mandate in general, but more specifically also for its policy, internship policy, and we very much look forward to support you in any way we can as FII as you embark in the reform of your program. Thank you again for your participation today.
Thank you. Bye-bye then.
Thank you. Bye. We now move on to the remaining part of the program. And we have two panels, one with human resources professionals and one with interns, and both will be preceded by a short presentation. And I'm therefore giving the floor to our moderator for the next part of the meeting, to Salome. Salome, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Matteo. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining, guys. Thank you again. In the next session, we will be hearing two groups of people who can give us on the ground look at what the internships are like in the UN system. On the first panel, we will be hearing best practices from HR professionals and what their organizations do to improve interns' experience. And then in our second panel, we will hear from interns themselves about what their personal experiences are like. First, I want to kindly remind you some conference rules. Our discussions is recorded, and as I know, we have live stream on Facebook, and also the recording will be uploaded on YouTube. We apologize for lack of international sign language interpretation. Please engage in the discussion and ask questions through the chat function. If we have time, we will try to get to them. And as you are forming your questions, I want to remind everybody that this is a solution-oriented program, so we want to be forming our questions in the ways that we can can help us to work together to lead the greater end. So first, our first panel, Claudia Pinto will open our first panel discussion with her presentation. Please, Claudia, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me clearly. And thank you, Salome, for the introduction. And I want to start by thanking Fair Internships Initiative for their work on this and for including us. So my name is Claudia, and I am a policy officer for social and economic inclusion at the European Youth Forum, which is the biggest platform of youth organizations in Europe, and we represent the rights of young people at international level, not only towards the European Union, but also like Council of Europe or the United Nations. And so a big priority of the Youth Forum is our unpaid internships campaign, which I have been working a lot on over the past year. And so in the last months, we have been updating our quality charter on internships and apprenticeships, which basically lays out criteria of what a quality internship should look like. I invite you all to download this charter and to get to read it and familiarize yourself with it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And so we divided the charter in different sections, which mirror different aspects of a quality internship. So starting from the transparent recruitment side, obviously the recruitment should be transparent and unbiased, but also what we often notice is that sometimes in the vacancy notices, the internship provider requires previous work experience, and this is something that we think it's not correct, because an internship should be there to facilitate the transition from education to the labor market. And so this is something that we look into in this transparent recruitment aspect, as well as internships being recognized as work experience in future recruitment processes. And then a big part of the charter is the fair working conditions part, where we line out that an internship should be based on a written agreement between different parts. It should have access to social security protection, access to remuneration. It was actually previous research on this topic has identified has identified remuneration as the key quality criteria of what constitutes a good internship in terms of labor market outcomes and post-placement outcomes. And here we also mention access to redress mechanisms, and on remote, we included topics on like sections on remote traineeships. And here we think that they should have the same remuneration as in-person internships, and they should not hinder the learning objectives of the traineeship, because sometimes it's needed to be on the job in person to get to know the different tasks and the different activities and so on. And this is a nice segue into the next session, which is the learning objectives one, where we obviously think that, especially for curricular internships, the tasks of the internship should match the criteria of the educational attainment, and there should also be a clear evaluation criteria. And here, another important part is that in an internship, there should be a mentor in place with whom there is regular contact. On this side as well, ideally, internships should have follow-up opportunities within that organization, but if that is not possible, then there should be a space for follow-up advice and career counseling. And lastly, we have a section looking at frameworks and protection of the rights of young people, which is dealing with data collection and exchange of best practices across different member states, different countries. And so and to enforce as well the labor inspectorates to make sure that the rights of young people are being respected in the labor market. And so that's basically our new charter. Because at the Youth Forum, we think that internships are just a symptom of a bigger problem, which is precarious employment, where young people are often overrepresented. And so it's important to guarantee quality working conditions, not just for interns, but for young people and everyone in the labor market. And like I mentioned before, if you're interested in this topic, if you want to learn more about our charter or just internships in general, feel free to get in touch with us at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you very much. So, as I mentioned on the first panel, we will be hearing best practices from human resource professionals. So I want to introduce our panelists. We have Zen Petal from UNHCR and Mark Phillips from IOM. So I just want to quickly go around and talk a little bit about who you are, what is your position, and what does your organization do. Just in sentence or two, so we can start maybe with Zen, please.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay, just to check?
Yes, yes.
Fantastic. Thank you. Let me just quickly introduce myself. So my name is Zen Patel. I work for UNHCR, and I work as the head of the Partnership and Affiliate Workforce Unit within the Human Resources Division. And the internship portfolio falls under our portfolio in the unit. Thank you.
Thank you. Then, Mark, please.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon to all of you. I work with the ILO, very complicated, the acronyms in the UN system, the International Labour Organization, one of the specialized agencies dealing with the promotion of social justice and promotion of decent work for all. Interesting that this is the end of a very long day for me, because we are concluding our 349, can you believe that, 349 session of the ILO governing body, meeting every couple of months. And of course, this is a forum for the workers, the employers, and the Ministry of Labour to discuss about important decisions in terms of the world of work. I am in charge of the staff operation branch, to which the talent portfolio that include the junior professional officer, the UN volunteer program, but also the internship belong. Very glad to be with you this afternoon. Over.
Thank you very much. So we have begun to start discussion with the context of International Interns Day, the challenge that we are facing with the cost of living across the world. The UN Joint Inspection Unit identified financial considerations as the single largest obstacle to access UN internships. Luckily, more and more UN organizations are making steps to introduce or increase stipends as a tool to ensure equal opportunities. What is a practice in your agency with regards to stipends, and what did it take to get there? And are there any future plans to improve? Please feel free to answer. Maybe Zen, you'll start.
Sure, I'm happy to. I just wondered if Raphael wanted to introduce himself before I go ahead.
Yes.
Raphael,
I'm so sorry. Yes.
No worries at all, colleagues. Thank you. And I didn't want to interrupt, but thank you, Zen, if not. So I will be very brief. I'm Raphael from the International Organization for Migration. I'm here in Geneva, and as a former intern myself, now I am, for the most part, the focal point for internships in Geneva, and I'm very much looking forward to this panel together with the colleagues that you see on screen. Over.
Thank you, Raphael. Thank you very much. Yes, and our first question was, what is a practice in your agency with regard to stipends, and what did it take to get there? Are there any future plans to improve? Then, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. And firstly, can I just start by saying thank you very much for organizing this initiative. I think it's very well organized, and I think these are really important topics that we should be talking about. So thank you for the forum for us to be able to be here today and talk about this. So UNHCR, we've been on quite a bit of a journey in terms of payments to interns. So back in 2018, we introduced a new internship administrative instructions, which had for the first time allowances paid to interns. So within our agency, we call it a food and local transport allowance. And this at this time was set at 10% of the daily subsistence allowance, the DSA, at all duty stations. So this was the first time that we brought in the this allowance. Over the years, we had feedback that in some duty stations it was adequate, and then in others it wasn't. So it wasn't, this one blanket approach wasn't meeting all duty stations. And we did a lot of consultation with other UN organizations, with different interns themselves, an internship board, and looked at what best practice was. And then last year in 2022, we brought out a revision to the internship AI with new DSA allowances. And so what we have now in place is we have set a new guideline that interns are paid an allowance, a DSA allowance, which is set at 50% of general service staff level 3 salary for all duty stations except for headquarters and other similar family duty stations, where it's set at 70% of the general service staff level 3. And this was just really to meet the fact that in some headquarter organizations, the cost of living is just much higher, and to really recognize this. We also increased some of the benefits, and one of the key changes we made at that time was that we now reimburse travel to and from the duty station if the intern is recruited from outside of the country. So that was another key change that we made.
Thank you very much. Mark?
I can go next. Yes, thank you. But not surprisingly, the notion of due consideration for remuneration and what deserve at the end of a working day is very much at the forefront of the ILO. So we have been paying our intern for a very, very long time. I think it's more than 20 years. I was looking briefly at the evolution. We had 2015, yes, it was 1,500 Swiss francs, US dollar or euro. These days is very comparable. And as we speak now, we are just below 2,500, 2,500 Swiss francs, euro for Geneva-based intern. We were going a bit with the crowd outside Geneva, adopting the stipend that most of the UN agencies were adopting in other duty stations. But since last year, we have adopted something a bit similar to what Zen was mentioning. But we do it with the G1 step 1, the full G1 step 1 salary in the field. We have also introduced a couple of years ago a contribution to the medical insurance. So the ILO is not covering for the medical insurance, but have concluded a privileged partnership agreement with a service provider, and we are paying a part of those costs. In terms of other, because we need always to look at improving this stipend level, it's embedded into negotiated internship policy and procedure. And when I speak about negotiated in the ILO context, is including the staff union representative. So very interestingly, the intern have also a say in the staff union of the ILO, and so they are at the table when we are negotiating or renegotiating our policy and procedure. And among the elements that we are considering for next year, it's about looking, it's a small thing, but all are important, of course. It's about a coupon for the reduction of meal price at the cafeteria in the ILO Geneva for intern, and also or to facilitate housing, contact with housing agencies to find more reasonable cost of accommodation for intern in Geneva. You can imagine our sensitivities. Let me stop there for the time being. And maybe just 100 intern in the ILO here in Geneva, and a bit less if we look at all the legislation for this year. We had, please allow me, we interrupted in the ILO the internship during the COVID period because we felt strongly that the internship through remote location was not capturing all the essence of an internship. But of course, we are very happy to resume it up post-COVID, obviously. Over.
Thank you very much. Raphael, please.
Thank you, Salome. I would not want to repeat what our Deputy Director General mentioned a few minutes ago, but then just very briefly, IOM is very much committed very strong commitment with avoiding unpaid labor in any sort, which I'm sure our ILO colleagues will be very happy to hear. On the way we calculate intern stipends is also based on the GS category, sometimes G1, sometimes G3, depending on rather complex things. So I would not want to get into details right now. But we do base also in the DSA, and we have established a minimum so that if with a normal calculation for that specific duty station, which can be very different in some countries, we know the world is not only Geneva, New York, and Vienna. Actually, many of our interns do not come to New York, Geneva, Vienna, but actually go to the field offices, regional and country offices. We have, as I said, established a minimum to avoid the pure cold calculation of that GSA-based allowance to be something ridiculous. So to avoid, we know that the stipends could be improved, and as our Mrs. Voyachkova-Solerano might have mentioned, we are in the process of reviewing, hopefully with the soon increase of the way we calculate things, so to make it fair and better for everyone. But at least for now, the facts are we do pay, except in those cases in which another institution, normally a university or a government, is sponsoring. And if that is the case, then we take great pain to make sure that the amount provided is at least equal to our own stipend. So if you sometimes from time to time we get people to come and tell us, well, we can't sponsor these interns, but the stipend is something that is just not acceptable, then we unfortunately have to say no. We also remunerate remote interns. We fully agree with colleagues who say that the nothing compares to the immersion that you get when you come to the actual duty station and are surrounded by the colleagues, the environment, the work, and the like. Although during the pandemic, we had to, our rationale was that we should still provide young, eager professionals with the opportunity to get a first experience with IOM. We understand, and it's perfectly legitimate if other agencies decided something different, but that was our rationale. Although now, of course, we encourage all interns, if possible, to come to Geneva or to the regional and country offices and have the full experience. Over.
Thank you very much. Next question. Diversity is particularly important for international organizations. Is there any additional strategy in place to make the internship program more accessible and inclusive to young people coming from different backgrounds? Then maybe we can start with you.
Oh, yeah. So actually, when we did the review for the internship AI that we released last year, this was a big component in terms of how do we attract more diverse interns. And I think it was said in the opening statements as well, we didn't want to narrow it down just to interns who are most privileged that they could afford to take an internship with us, because they could either afford to pay their own travel and could afford to support themselves during that internship. So this is one of the big reasons why we changed the allowances, and we also reimburse for travels to be able to. So one of the big parts was we really wanted to encourage interns from underrepresented racial and geographical backgrounds to be able to enter the internship program with UNHCR. You know, when we talk about diversity at UNHCR, there's a lot of things that fall under the umbrella of diversity, as you know. So gender diversity still remains a really critical component, and our recruitment policies are really aimed at getting a good gender parity when we're looking, especially at the internship program. We really see the internship program as a way to be able to grow talent within the UN organization. You know, many of these interns who are with us today will one day be in leadership opportunities within the UN, within other international organizations as well. So I think this is why it's so important to really have some good diversity and representation in this program. So we do a lot of initiatives to also ensure that our offices are safe spaces for LGBTIQ+ colleagues as well. We've recently implemented with a new HR system that we implemented a bit over a year ago, a lot of greater accessibility, especially when it comes to recruitment for those colleagues with disabilities as well, to be able to apply. We've really looked at, what our recruitment application form is, and for those being able to allow for greater accessibility for those colleagues with disabilities as well. Interestingly enough, one of the topics that we talked about in terms of diversity as well, a lot with the internship AI, was around age diversity as well. And we particularly took out an age limit for our internship. Our criteria is really based on, eligibility criteria is based on students who are either currently studying or within 2 years of graduation. But we deliberately didn't put an age limit on it, because we think that anybody can do an internship at any part of their life that are wanting to learn new skills, to go back and study, and to grow in different areas. So we really didn't want to narrow it down to only include a certain age bracket and not only include young people in that. So these are some of the practices that we have implemented in order to increase diversity in the internship portfolio.
Thank you very much, Mark, Raphael.
Yeah, well, we go the same. This is human being. We like to reproduce the same cycle naturally, even if we are not forced. Same approach that then in terms of not having an age limit. We have only, because we have so many internal candidates in playing. I will explain in a second. But so we limit to 1 year of graduation, or the graduation to be acquired within the next 12 months. This is the eligibility criteria, but no age again. We of course, diversity, it's an issue for the entirety of the UN system. Interestingly, I had mentioned once I had the opportunity, we receive all intern on the 1st and the 15th each month. Like that, we can group the briefing for all of them. And once the Director General was entering the office, or the building, I mean, when he saw a group of 10, 12 new interns, and I had the opportunity to tell him that look, DG, who started his mandate 1 year ago and will continue for the next four years, if you are successful to have as diversity in the ILO real career position, that in this group of new interns, you would have done a big success. So definitely diversity complex. We are doing as much as we can in terms of outreach. Or the ILO organize internship application is that twice a year, during the month of October, and typically October and May, we are advertising for 10 working days, a certain number, 35, 40, typical template for internship, and then a candidate can apply to maximum 3 of them. And then we have the screening. Of course, we pay particular attention to the fairness and transparency of the process. But we are very good, I would say, or we know how important it is about reaching out. So we are in contact with the mission, we are in contact with the alumni, we are in contact with local university, and we try to spread the word very widely. And we have easily 5-6 plus thousand candidates for this 35-40 position, just to give you an idea. Yes, disability is also important, as mentioned by previous speaker. We are glad to also send to the network that can bring a potential candidate, and we have also a special accommodation fund that we are making sure to facilitate as much as we can the welcoming of our intern with disability.
Thank you, Mark. Raphael, please.
Thank you, Salome. I'm very happy to brag about our diversity and inclusion internship program, which has been one of our flagship initiatives for a good while. Normally, the internship vacancies that IM posts are open to eligible nationals, which, like my colleagues have mentioned, are current students and recent graduates from all our member states and often beyond. But we do reserve a few what we call the diversity and inclusion internships, often published around the spring, for candidates from non-OECD DAC countries, so what we could broadly call the Global South, as well as non-represented member states in the professional category for IOM, and that's a good unfortunately, that's still a relatively high number of countries. So if you come from one of these non-OECD DAC places or from one non-represented member states of IOM, then this might be an opportunity for you, because don't get me wrong, it's not an easier way in. It's an extremely competitive still procedure. We get often over 100 applicants, I mean qualified applicants who have finished degrees and often have very, very good qualifications. But it is one way to kind of increase the number of people from those countries which often are not applying, and it's very much in our priorities. And as Ms. Voyachkova might have mentioned, it's very much at the core of our interest right now on our strategic priorities at IOM to make sure that we address what we call diversity with a capital D, meaning all sorts of dimensions of aspects of diversity, not only geographical and gender expression and so on, but also indigenous people living with disabilities, and so on and so forth. So this has been a very good example, I think, based on the results that we have had, retention, one of them, but then also other metrics of how this program has succeeded. We provide this specific cohort plane tickets to the duty station and back home, if that's the case. After the internship, the normal stipend, and on top of that, some specific follow-up with colleagues in terms of networking, on CV building and the like, so we can, in one way, encourage them to keep applying and keep growing, all interns, but this one in particular, to make a career within IOM. And I think, again, judging from retention and some numbers that have gone up, it has been quite successful, and I think we have had chats with other agencies about similar initiatives that they are also great at fostering.
Thank you very much. So that leaves the next question, and also our audience, also one of our member of our audience is asking this question. Professional development after the internship is an issue to discuss as well. Are there any mechanisms in place to support young people's transaction from internship into a labor market? Maybe then let's start from you.
So thank you. So this was something that we gave a lot of thought to with our policy revision. So our prior policy, we had a 6-month mandatory break in service requirement following an internship. And what we found was that it was really derailing interns' careers when they built up momentum, they built up those relationships, and they saw that there was opportunities that they would be good at. They've already, built up a lot of knowledge in those key areas. So this is one of the things that we got rid of in our current policy. We really saw that it was blocking career developments of interns previously. And I'll just share with you, I have a case within my team where we had a candidate who started with us as an intern, and then we had an opportunity that came up during the period of time of her internship, and she was then able to apply for it and get the position, and then she was able to then transition directly on to being a general service staff within our team, and stay on for longer, because obviously our internship program has time limits on it. So we currently have up to maximum of 8 months for full-time, and then 12 months for part-time. But this has allowed her then to stay with the team, to continue working and building up that professional experience. So I think that this was a key part in it. As part of the program, we also really try to do a lot of things for the interns to offer them opportunities to really grow in their career as well. So all interns have access to our Global Learning and Development Center, for example. So they have access to a multitude of trainings that all staff have as well. A combination of online trainings and in-person trainings as well. One of the things we are looking into more, and I think it was one of the colleagues who said previously about having a mentorship program as well. It's not something that we currently have, but I think it's something that could be of real interest to our intern population going forward. And we offer our interns We have what we call career development workshops as well, that are open, that interns can sign up for. And these are really practical things like how to write a motivation letter when you're a good quality motivation letter when you're applying for a position, and very tailored towards, you know, UN specific as well, or international organization specific. How to train for a competency-based interview, tips and tricks about the recruitment process, because it's quite specific within this sector as well. So these are some of the initiatives that we offer to the intern population and to general staff in general. But I think it is an area that we've had a lot of feedback in, and I think there's more initiatives that we can certainly be doing in this area. So I think it's a very interesting topic.
Thank you very much, Mark. Rafael, if you would like to add something shortly.
Well, I think definitely not a workshop trying to help our intern to prepare a CV, to prepare mentally, including mentally to the interview. It's access to the LinkedIn learning system. Very important, maybe to add that for us, the mentoring is essential. So there is clearly like a compact between the supervisor of the intern, for the supervisor to be there to help not only the specific work during those 3 or 6 months with the ILO, but more about the career aspect. This said, in the ILO, we do not equalize 6 months of internship with 6 months of work experience, but we are considering at half 50%, so 6 months in the ILO or outside. Even if you have carried out an internship outside the ILO, even in the private sector, even in other agencies, all this will be counted when you apply to the ILO for ILO position at 50% of the internship. On not next Monday, but the following one, on 20th of November, the ILO Director General, Gilbert Ambo, will be attending and speaking with the intern during the context of an ILO Internship Development Day. And this is also to show respect and how important this program is for the more senior level in the ILO.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Rafael, if you would like to add.
Very, very quickly, thank you. I will echo again what my colleagues have mentioned. We do not have a monetary break in service after the maximum 9 months of internship that we have, so you can be recruited afterwards. We also provide some different kinds of trainings and access to learning platforms throughout the internship, hoping that could allow you to grow and discover and enhance your skills and your profile. And last but not least, I would say IOM it might be the only organization in the UN system, to my knowledge, what we call an ungraded contract, which under certain circumstances might allow you to be retained with a staff contract, like a light staff contract, which might change in the future after your internship. That's what happened, for example, to me a few years ago.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you, our audience, and thank you, our panelists. We really appreciate it. You have been with us and share your experience and opinions. Thank you so much. For the next part, we are going to discuss interns experience, where we can hear some first-hand experiences from interns who are currently working in UN system or have been doing or we are doing internship in the UN system. But first, we will start with the presentation of Filipa Schormark from Fair Internship Initiative. Please, Filipa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Salome. Yes, so I will be briefly presenting a sneak peek of some results from our global survey, which I cannot share myself. So in the absence of having them on the screen, I will just start to explain about the survey and what they are. So we have in the Fair Internship Initiative been conducting surveys of interns across the UN system since 2015, and that's intended to give us a better understanding of the challenges that interns face and to collect an evidence base for our advocacy work and to help support UN agencies in improving the quality and accessibility and fairness of their internship programs. So this year we launched a survey in August 2023, and that was open to interns from 2022 as well as 2023. And we received over 600 responses from interns with over 100 nationalities all around the world at 49 different UN bodies and at duty stations in 88 different countries. So we have a good global coverage across the UN system. And as always, the survey covers a broad range of topics relating to the quality of the whole internship experience, from application through to some aspects of career development opportunities. But for now, as the results are freshly in, I'll just focus on a couple of things, mainly about the stipends. So we have previously and have again categorized the stipends that interns report as what we at the Fair Internship Initiative consider to be kind of reasonably adequate stipends, which we base on the daily subsistence allowance of the duty station. So that's adjusted depending on the particular location. And I think I'm able to share my screen, so hopefully you'll be able to see it now, and that will help explain. And so what we have said is that if the stipend is at least 15%, then we consider that a fairly paid internship. If there is a stipend, but it's below that benchmark, then it's underpaid. And if there's no stipend at all, then it's unpaid. And as we've heard from our HR colleagues, there are other ways of setting the stipend level, and that's always up for debate, but it's just a kind of rough benchmark. And so what we saw this time is 38% of our respondents had no stipend at all, and that is, for the most part, interns in the Secretariat, because currently the Secretariat policy still is that all the interns receive no stipend or living allowance whatsoever. And then the largest portion is this 42% that receive some allowance, but it's below 15% of the DSA for their duty station, and so it's considered inadequate to actually support them to be able to do that internship without substantial other sources of income. And then 19% fairly paid. And this is taking into account those cases like Raphael mentioned, where in some cases universities or governments sponsor interns, and in that case they don't get the stipend as well. So we do include those in this analysis, and that's amount. And so moving on, we can then break down looking at the stipend amounts depending on the modality of the internship. So we have heard a bit of different approaches on whether interns should be in person or home-based. There are pros and cons, but looking at the stipends, we see that interns that attend in person on average are also getting better stipends, again adjusted for their location. So in person, on average, they get 13.5% of their duty station's DSA, whereas home-based only 6.4%. And that is not acceptable, in our opinion. And then looking again at this classification where we have In orange, we have the percentage of interns that are paid, and then in the light blue, the percentage that are underpaid, and in dark blue, the percentage that are entirely unpaid. Again, breaking that down by whether interns are home-based, partially home-based, or fully in person, we're again seeing that 25% of in-person interns were fairly paid versus only about 2% of home-based. And also those that are partly or fully home-based are more likely, again, to receive no stipend whatsoever. And so just because you're home-based doesn't mean that you don't have any cost of living. And so there's no argument for not providing a stipend just because somebody's home-based. And we did, in fact, ask interns about financial difficulties that they've experienced. So if we asked whether as a result of doing the internship, they had themselves or their family experienced financial difficulties. And what we're showing here is the percentage who answered yes. And then that's again broken down by whether the internship was remote or in person. And again, by the stipend categorization. And so it's interesting that if we look at the in-person ones, even some of those that we classified as fairly paid did have some financial difficulties, which of course can be because there are also often substantial visa costs and costs of relocating. And while we've heard some good practices about contributing towards those, that's not the case for all UN bodies. And it's also often very difficult to find accommodation at short notice in expensive cities and all of that. But so we see that among the home-based interns, we don't have anyone reporting financial difficulties when they have a good stipend above 15% of the DSA. But for the ones that are underpaid or unpaid, so they're receiving inadequate or no stipend at all, being home-based didn't make them any less likely to experience financial difficulties than those that were in person. In fact, if anything, they were slightly more likely to experience financial difficulties if they were home-based. So that's just really some hard data there to back up that while there can be advantages for some people of doing a home-based internship, and interns did highlight some of those when they completed the survey. For example, if you have caring responsibilities or for visa issues and that kind of thing, it can enable you to do an internship when you wouldn't have otherwise been able to. But it is vital that it is remunerated on a fair level as with in-person internships. And one last thing to highlight, we've talked a lot about diversity, and something that really struck me was looking at the where interns come from and looking at a regional analysis. And so on the left there, we've got the percent of interns from different regions that had no stipend at all. And you see that Sub-Saharan Africa is one of the regions with the highest percentage of unpaid interns. And then on the right, we look at, of those that did get some sort of stipend, what is the average percentage of the duty station DSA that it was. And there you see Sub-Saharan Africa right at the bottom. So it's both the region from which interns are most likely or among the most likely to be unpaid, and then if they are paid, they get paid the least. So I think that's something that will definitely be worth diving into and trying to address in future. And so to conclude, I have a quote from one of our respondents that I think summarizes nicely that UN internships that are not offering fair stipends are actually strengthening inequalities and limiting opportunities. But let's hear then from some interns themselves.
Thank you, Filipa. Thank you very much for your interesting presentations. Let's hear from interns themselves. Yes. So in the second discussion, we have interns who are currently working in UN system or have experience of internship in UN system. We have Mark Aurelian Espot, current Blue Book trainee and former UNEP intern, Collins Sansan Sarami, WHO intern, and Clara Tassini Alves, FB intern. Thank you very much for joining us and being with us today. Please give a little introduction of yourself, what you do at your organization or what you did at your organization in the past during your internship, very shortly. Maybe Mark, we can start from you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to this event and putting this event together. My name is Marc Aurélien. I'm French. I did an internship in UNEP Paris between August 2022 and February 2023. As it was in UNEP Paris, it was, of course, an unpaid internship, but we managed to organize ourselves between the different interns to put on a union of interns in our duty stations, and we advocated for more rights, and it was a small victory, but still a victory. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Collins, please.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Collins. I'm from Malaysia. I'm a medical doctor by training, currently interning at the WHO HQ with a special partnership, which is the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn, and Child Health, which is hosted by the WHO. My background is actually public health in disasters. Thank you, and nice to be here.
Thank you. Clara, please.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I wanted to apologize to not be looking like everyone else. I tried to put the background and I ended up all blue instead of my room. So we're going to have to deal with that. But, well, I'm Clara. I'm from Brazil and I am in the World Food Program, interning at the Integrated Resilience Programming. Yes, and I'm very excited to hear about Mark's experience, and I would love to hear more from all of you. So,
thank you very much. So my first question is, was your stipend sufficient to cover your fellow interns' living expenses? Collins, let's start from you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm actually serving on the WHO intern board. We have about 52 interns here in the community at the WHO and HQ, out of which 27 of them are currently active. They're still here in the WHO. And we have, they come from 24 different countries, of which 60% of us are actually from Asia and Africa. We receive an allowance. We also receive health insurance. Our allowance is just a little bit below the 20% DSA. And according to the survey that was conducted, we receive on average about 1,900 CHF per month. We had a sort of a workshop 2 weeks ago where we talked to interns to get some feedback about what they had about the internship process. And the feedback that came back was that although the internship, the stipend that we are getting paid, it's just barely enough for us to live here in Geneva. Which I think it's a good description. It seems to be like we can survive, but we are just barely scraping by. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your experience. Others, please feel free to answer.
Okay. All right. Let's change the order. Yeah, so here we make 14% of the DSA. It is also exactly as Colin said, barely enough. So right there on the limit to make it living. I would say I would go on numbers because I'm not very good at making estimations. So I would say the life cost in Rome would be around 1,000. And we make in between 800 and 950. So there is a little bit there. What we have been struggling with, though, and I thought it was very interesting to hear from people from HR, it's also the inconsistency of it. So a lot of interns have been reporting delays on their payments. And we also have noticed that because we get paid on the basis of a DSA, the amount changes per month quite a lot. And when you talk maybe with like a staff, they will say, well, it's going to change 100 euros. But when you're making that little and that on the edge of making a living, this 100 euros make a big difference on your comfort level on the end of the month. So we have been struggling a lot with that. And I would say that's also a big point, the consistency of things.
Thank you, Clara. Thank you. Mark, if you would like to add something.
Yes, of course. So in the UNEP Paris office, unfortunately, as I said, there is absolutely no stipend provided and no support in any way for lunch or transportation. So, of course, all the interns that are actually interning here are from very well-favored background, of course. Otherwise, it would be impossible for anyone to live in Paris, which is a very, very costly city, as you may know. So as a personal experience, we gathered as a union, and we had a strike for one afternoon, had a strike for a day to advocate for this issue and to try to raise awareness. And fortunately, everybody was actually well aware of the situation, and we received a very warm welcome for this event, and some high profile people came talk to us and advise us on how to work on this situation. And fortunately, we had the opportunity to discuss and negotiate with one of the HR personnel in the office to try to find some way to have lunch vouchers and 50% of the commute tickets paid as a alignment with the Geneva office, because as you may know, Paris duty station is not a duty station by itself. It's linked with Geneva, and so we had to align with the Geneva compensation. But the only way it could have been negotiated was through this way. So I was there when the negotiation started, and but I left after during the negotiation. So I think they are put in place, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, it's a good way to initiate the discussion to advocate for this very sharply.
Thank you very much. And my next question I would like to ask is about remote internships. What did you or your fellow interns miss? Did you feel you or they get the same chances as those in person who did their internships in person? Feel free to start discussion. Yes, Clara,
maybe
please.
I can start because then I will be very brief. So also just a quick disclaimer that I'm noticing. I can see Mark and Collins, you're involved on like union and also board. We don't have that at WFP. So I can only talk about my experience and my experience only. And of course, I talk with a lot of interns. We are trying to set up something. So hopefully at some point we manage to get there. But I didn't do a remote internship, so I'm here. And to be honest, I also noticed that we don't have so much contact with the interns that are doing it remotely. I have noticed that WFP has a concern to bring interns here for at least a couple of weeks, which I think it's very nice. So even interns that have been located in country offices or regional bureaus or some other locations, they are coming here sometimes for meetings or exercises, or if they're doing remote work, they are also invited. And a lot of times I have heard that this has been supported, at least from country offices and regional bureaus, which I think this is a very nice thing that's happening, but I can't say much about it.
Thank you, Clara. Mark, Collins, if you like to add something. about remote internships. Yes, Mark, please.
I will also be very brief. In my group, a group of fellow interns, there were actually 1 or 2 interns that did a 100% remote internship. I was living in Paris, and I was living actually very nearby from the office, so I was the luckiest one. I went to the office by foot, so. But yeah, we only had 1 or 2 interns, 100% remote, and I think my example is not very relevant of the whole situation, because that intern ended up being proposed a contract just right after. So it's an unusual situation, I would say. So the idea maybe here is that maybe not all remote internship will not end up with a contract, but I would say that for daily life, for networking, for everything in between works, everything social, it is definitely not helping. Definitely.
Thank you very much. Yes, Collins, please.
Yeah, so for us, I think from my understanding, it is at the WHO, they do not have remote internships. And so all the interns that we have are currently based here in Geneva. I also would like to say that the WHO intern board was inactive for quite a while, for 2 years, due to the COVID pandemic. And it was through much difficulty that we were able to reestablish it. It took us 3 months to recover all our accounts, our logins. And it was a very challenging task for us as interns. But we are very proud to say that we have restarted it, and we are currently active. And a major focus of what we are doing is also to ensure that our intern board continues to remain active and to advocate for intern for rights and benefits, and to continuously improve. And we will be very happy to share best practices with you, Clara. Please feel free to reach out to us. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Next question: what was your fellow interns' experience with supervision, and what would you recommend your host organizations to change? Maybe Mark, you start.
So in my host organization, I would say there were very diverse supervision experiences among the interns. I was also very lucky also here, because I had very present supervisors, and we right from the beginning we committed to have very much honest discussions and continuous, I would say, weekly meetings, whatever was happening, even though we had nothing to say. So it was very healthy to establish a trust relationship. I would say that for what I heard from my fellow intern is that the higher you go, the more scarce the supervision is. For instance, I recall some interns that were working with very high-profile people, maybe P5 people, and they were so busy doing something else that they always ended up doing very, I would say, low-quality tasks, or the communication was very scarce or very, I don't want to say brutal, but very sharp. And it was not about discussing about how are we going to implement something. It was just about, I need you to do this, do it, you know. So I recall them suffer from that situation. But if I am to give advice, is to right away on day 1 or day 2 say that you want to establish a 100% honesty relationship, and you trust the person to have a strong conversation, a strong dialogue with you, and have this ongoing weekly meeting, so she can check and build the trust.
Thank you very much. Others, maybe Clara.
Yes, I agree 100% here. It was very diverse, the experiences. And I think yes, it's exactly the same. Often like higher level staff will have a bit less time, or be less used to, or be also, I don't know if I want to say, maybe a bit more old school, you know, like, oh, it's the intern. While younger people are often a little bit more aware, or also more understanding of the current working situation, that I thought it was very nicely mentioned by the previous speakers, that to understand that we are trained, we have experience, we have done quite a lot of things, and we are eager to work on in-depth content. So it's very, very diverse. And then what I think it could help the most us in making this a bit more of a leveled up experience would be to have some sort of representation or board or union of this kind. We have been missing that a lot here at WFP. We have been trying to organize also just social events, and we keep on finding interns in the corridors and elevators. They have no idea and haven't met a single intern yet. So it's quite sad, I think. And also the onboarding experience for people have been quite confusing, and which takes a lot of time from you to actually engage on work when you're a long time trying to understand a big organization. So I would say those points, a more prepared staff to receive interns, and then some sort of representation that we can improve the experience by ourselves.
Thank you, Clara, very much. Collins, if you would like to add.
Yeah, so I really echo with what both Mark and Clara said. I think the experience for every person is very different depending on the relationship that they have with their supervisor. I can say for me personally, working with PMNCH, I work in the digital communications unit, and I was under a technical officer. And we were brought in, there are 3 interns in my unit, and we were all brought in for a very specific event, which was the Global Forum for Adolescents that happened in October. And it was quite a hectic time leading up to this event. We had over 8,000 people joining in virtually over 2 days. For me, my relationship with my supervisor was very good. He was very supportive, and I felt very comfortable telling him things, and we worked very well together. And I was also given it was a good balance between doing tasks that are time consuming, or like the more the grinding tasks, versus some creative tasks. So I was also given the opportunity to do things, to explore some new things, which was very interesting. And I was very grateful for the opportunity to explore and do new things as well, and learn some new skills and all of that. I think one thing that I can say on behalf of the intern board, what we did or what we tried to do was to create a space or a platform for us to bring the interns and the supervisors together. So because it's always just you as an intern with your supervisor, but then we also want the supervisors to meet other supervisors and the supervisors to meet other interns, and likewise. And so we started to have some events. So for example, we did a very simple event, which was like the tour of the Palais. We invited all the interns, and we told the interns, please invite your supervisors as well. It's a free tour, please come. We also had a very interesting event at the Innovation Hub. So within the WHO, we have this space, it's called Eureka. And we did a workshop on innovation, and also invited interns and their supervisors to come. And we had a full house, like everyone showed up. So I think organizing those kind of events, just to create that space where everyone can come in a very informal way, have open discussion, I think that really improves the experience for everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your experience. And with that puts an end to our panel. I want to thank all the panelists from HR and our interns for showing up today and for very interesting discussions. And now I have the opportunity to introduce Maria Rodriguez to give us final remarks. Maria, please.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me all. I'm Maria Rodriguez Alcázar. I'm the president of the European Youth Forum, that is the largest youth-led organization in the world, and we represent young people in Europe. First, thank you so much, everyone, for attending this event today on this very interesting topic. Actually, the Youth Forum is very much working on internships, on banning unpaid internships in particular in the European scale, but also at the global level. And we very much appreciate all the interventions that took place before mine, all the speakers, the keynote, the speech, and also the experiences from the interns themselves. Thank you actually for putting yourself forward and to talk about this topic that is usually as well a bit hidden, because it's not easy, we understand, to talk about the actual consequences of unpaid internships while you are also developing an internship. I'm sure that we all leave this event with a wider knowledge on how internship programs work in the United Nations system. And we really want to thank Fair Internships Initiative for organizing this event one more year, to actually put together different agents working on this matter, and also for showing the results of this survey that you usually conduct, and that we can learn so much from it. And not only learning, I mean, what we do afterwards is using this for advocacy, also to persuade people on what are the real consequences of unpaid internships or low paid internships in young people, and actually how this really has consequences on the lives of individuals, but also in societies. From the European Youth Forum, it's always a pleasure to work together on this matter. You know that already, but we will continue doing this until unpaid internships are not banned like everywhere, and also interns are very well paid in the different places in the world. Thank you so much, Salome, also for guiding this discussion today in this topic, but also for your dedication to this matter. Actually, Salome was working with us as well on the research that we presented on the cost of unpaid internships, and we believe that she did a great job there, and she will continue also working on this matter and showing the consequences of this. As you know, for the European Youth Forum, again, this is very high on our agenda. Actually, for 1.5 years, we have been putting this as very much a priority in our external work. Probably some of you know that at the European level, we are asking for a directive at the European level produced by the European Commission. Basically, a directive is a legally binding legislation. So that means something that will be legally binding in all the member states of the European Union. So last year, actually, we were kind of protesting in front of the European Parliament, trying to get the support of different members of the European Parliament and different groups. And actually, during this year, during this summer, we got a European Parliament resolution calling for the end of unpaid internships. So calling the European Commission to actually develop this directive that we were looking for. This was also the result of the advocacy of so many actors. Of course, we were leading this together with trade unions, but we received really the support of so many people, many of those, of course, young people, and we appreciate these efforts. We handed in actually into the hands of the Commissioner for Jobs and Social Rights a petition calling for this directive, for this legislation. And once again, we reiterated the need that we have for this. But I must say also that the Commissioner reiterated his support for young people, and his support to create a labor market that can include young people. And he showed his commitment to this part of having quality internships. In total, we gathered 8,400 signatures, which was quite a lot in the time that we were running this petition. And now what we are waiting for is really the proposal of the European Commission of this text that we hope it will reach our aspirations, and it will be as ambitious as we expect. But to be honest, what we found last year as well in these efforts that we developed is that the unpaid internships is an unfair practice that we knew already, but now we have numbers. We know that on average in Europe, in the European countries, a young person needs to invest on average, again, 1,000 euros to be able to simply live when they are developing an unpaid internships. 1,000 euros a month that they need to pay from their own pocket. So let's think on those young people who don't have savings or that they don't have a family network to actually support them. So what we found with this is how unpaid internships are actually increasing inequalities all across the world. So with this, I mean, we use this research, of course, to inform the different political changes that we are demanding. You can also find this research in our website, and you also got some hints about it from our policy officer before, from Claudia, on this matter. And I must say also that after the work that we developed, like during this 1 year and a half, we also empowered other youth organizations to work on this matter at the national level. So some of our member organizations, the national youth councils of different European countries, they were working with their ministries, usually the labor ministries, to change the regulation. We saw last year some changes and some advanced negotiations in Spain. Also in Portugal, for example, they actually ban unpaid internships in the recognized position, in the recognized professions. So that means, for example, for lawyers before becoming actually lawyers, or for medical doctors. And also we saw other attempts in Romania and in Serbia to develop new legislation. So I mean, we see that there are changes that are coming up, and we are happy actually to be empowering and to have more and more young people active in the conversation. Those are you as well, but also many more policymakers that are receptive, and also that they are understanding this message, that unpaid internships are simply unfair, that not everyone can afford to work for free, and that we need to change this urgently because it's an exploitative practice. So I'm not gonna elaborate more on that. In our case, in Europe, we are really waiting for this new directive from the European Commission. So let's hope that it's ambitious enough. As I said, today also some of my colleagues were in Geneva, actually meeting some of the organizations more linked to United Nations. They were meeting the International Labour Organization. We hope that there will be more and more changes also at the global scale. And now you can also consult our updated quality charter on internships and apprenticeships that is online. My colleague again presented it earlier. And we really think that this is a great tool to empower young people, to know them, to let them know what are the rights that they have. And we hope that this can be also widely spread, so we can more and more convince different institutions, different companies, different governments actually to change the legislations and to change also the practices that they are putting in place. We are always willing to continue working with all of you on this topic. So please feel free to reach out to the European Youth Forum if you have any collaboration or if you would like to engage more on this matter. And with this, I hope you will have a nice day wherever you are in the world. And again, I'm very willing to continue working together on this matter.
Thank you, Maria. It's always nice to count on the support of the European Youth Forum, which is indeed has been a big partner of the Fair Internship Initiative for these events for several years now. I think we can see that on both our sides, efforts on advocacy have paid off, and as the European Youth Forum is awaiting and working towards an initiative by the Commission to finally change the reality, so are we with the UN Secretariat in New York to make unpaid internships in the UN system a thing of the past. I think we have come to the end of our events. I very much thank all of you who have participated as audience, all the panelists, the moderator, the speakers, the presenters, but also all the Fair Internship Initiative members that have made this event possible. And let me also thank Martin Schunk, who has been behind the scene making this event possible, coordinating the communication. Thank you so much. If you want to know more about the Fair Internship Initiative, how you can collaborate with us, we're always happy to engage with motivated people that want to make a change. Our contacts are easily accessible in the chat. You can write an email to us. You can follow us on social media. We are not difficult to find. And let me just close by reminding everybody that although this is the end of the virtual event, if you're based in Copenhagen, in Geneva, in New York, or in Rome, the event continues with social events and informal get-together. More specifically, if you're in Copenhagen, that would be in the ground floor canteen of UN City. If you're in Geneva, that would be in Mr. Pickwick pub in Rue de Lausanne. If you're in New York, it would be at the Delegates Lounge in the UN Secretariat building. And if you're in Rome, at the Yellow Bar in Viale Ventino 78. With this is very much the end of our day. Another, I would say, successful International Interns Day celebration. We hope we motivated you. We hope we inspired and helped you figure out something that you might be useful for you, and that also that you will be more motivated to be active and advocate for interns' rights in whichever capacity you can in the future. Thank you very much for joining us today, and have a nice evening, day, morning, depending when you're based. Bye-bye.